Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Fostering a Growth Mindset. This session is being recorded, so thank you for participating. Our norms are the same as they have been for those of you who have joined us in the past. Please mute your microphone. I think we've all done that. You can use chat to ask questions during the first part of the session. We do have a relatively small group today, so if you want to unmute at any time and ask a question, feel free to do that. You are allowed to unmute yourself. Diane and Renee will be watching that chat window, looking for your questions. And we will, again, have some dedicated time to open up the microphones completely at the end. We will post the recorded version of this very soon. It usually happens immediately after the workshop, but sometimes it's a bit later in the evening. Those are now located on our main website, www.ciu10.org, and look for the free professional learning toolkit. If you have questions after the session, please feel free to email me. My email address is mbaker@ciu10.org. One last thing we'd ask you to do is please find your name in the participant window, hover over your name, click on that menu, and rename yourself, adding your district's initials after your name. That helps us take attendance, and it helps us keep track of what districts are participating. So that is a big help for us, and it also helps you, as many districts are offering Act 48 hours if you attend our sessions. So the only way we can get them the information is if you provide us with that identifying data. Thank you kindly. So today we're going to take a look at fostering a growth mindset. And this really popped into my mind when I thought about the situation that we're in right now, and that the students are going to feel relatively isolated. It's hard to grade things, so we may have to approach things a little differently in the way that we deal with the students. So what we're going to look at today is, first of all, we'll get the quick working definition of what mindset actually is. We're going to look at some strategies that would encourage a growth mindset. You're going to do some activities that you can easily give to your students to have them work on. I will provide you with a link to all of those resources as well. They're all free today, so everything that I show you, you can easily get, and there's no charge to use them. And we'll take a look and briefly at what some of the common pitfalls are when we use mindset and we consider it. What are some of those traps that exist? So everything that you hear today is based on one research project that was done by Carol Dweck. And she published this book called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. It was published about 14 years ago now. And it's readily available on Amazon. It's like $9 in paperback. A lot of schools have read this and used this as part of a book study. So I know, for example, Keystone Central, everybody in the district has read this book. It's a real short read. It's interesting in that it looks at business people, celebrities, and athletes and talks about how their mindset impacts their success. So that's the basis of everything, the foundation of what we're doing today. So we don't all have the book, so I'm not going to refer a lot to chapters in the book. We're not going to look at quotes from the book and things like that because you don't have that text. But it's a real quick read, and most people that read it do like the book. It's very approachable and very easy to read. So that's something that you may want to pick up. There's a Kindle version too if you don't want to wait for it to be delivered. So the first thing that we have to figure out, obviously, is what is mindset? What does that term mean? So I'm going to give you a reading selection, and we're actually going to use Nearpod to do that so that I can provide you with the PDF. So in one moment, I'll ask you to open Nearpod in a tab in your browser, and I'll give you a code. But before we do that, let me preview the activity. You see a copy of the article here on the screen. It's very, very short. This is from Dr. Dweck's website, which has been deactivated. It was deactivated last summer. So luckily I had this saved on my computer. I'd like you to read, and I would like you to identify one word, one phrase, which is 3 or 4 words or a little bit longer, not a complete sentence though, and then one complete sentence. These are things that really stand out to you. So, what word really resonates, what phrase, and what sentence. I'm going to have you share those using Padlet. So we're going to use a couple different tools here. So you may want to jot that word, phrase, and sentence down so you can refer to it and add the notes in Padlet in a moment. If you're following the directions, please give me a yes using those feedback buttons so I know everyone's with me. The feedback buttons are at the bottom of the participant window. Okay. Excellent. So I'm going to launch a live lesson. I need you to go to nearpod.com, and you don't need to log in, but instead you're going to find there's a red box on that main screen at nearpod.com, and you're going to enter this code LXSKF to join our live session. And as you do that, I'll begin to see you showing up on the screen. I'm going to put that code in the chat window as well. So the address and the class code are now located in the chat window. Some of you have used Nearpod before. I'm sure for those of you who are unfamiliar, you can still see my screen, although you'd have to switch back to Zoom to do that. But I can see students being added along the bottom of the window. So right now I see that 11 of the 15 in the room have joined. Of course, I'm one of those 15. So we're still waiting for about 3 people. But I'm going to move on. You can join at any time just by going to nearpod.com and entering that code. So even though I've started, you can still join the lesson in a moment. So I'm going to move on. Once you've joined the lesson, you should now be seeing the slide that's on my screen in your Nearpod window. It's a nice little graphic here, a title slide. But let me give you now the article. So now you have a PDF on your screen, and you should now be able to read the article. So using chat, or you can unmute yourself, what are the 3 things I ask you to give me?
A word, a phrase, and a sentence.
Outstanding, thank you. And you might want to jot those down because we'll be using Nearpod in a moment to enter those. Excellent, so I'll be quiet. Take you probably about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes to do this. Read away.
Stand in the place where you live. Now face no. Think about direction. Wonder why you haven't now. Stand in the place where you were. Now face west. Think about the place where you live. Wonder why you haven't before. If you are confused, check with the sun. Carry a compass to help you along. Your feet are going to be on the ground. Your head is there to move you around. So stand in the place where you live. Now face no. Think about direction. Wonder why you haven't now. Stand in the place where you were. Now face west. Think about the place where you live. Wonder why you haven't before. Your feet are going to be on the ground. Your head is there to move you around. If wishes were trees, the trees would be falling. Listen to reason, the season is calling. Stand in
We'll
the
use this
place
song
where
as
you
our
live.
timer. There's about 1 minute and 45 seconds left.
Think about direction, wonder why you haven't now. Stand in the place where you were. Now face west. Think about the place where you live. Wonder why you haven't If wishes were trees, the trees would be falling. listen to reason. Reason is calling. Your feet are going to be on the ground. Your head is there to move you around. So stand. Now face no. Think about
Just under a minute left. Remember, one word, one phrase, one sentence.
now face no. Think about the place where you live. Wonder why you haven't. Stand in the place where you live. Now face no. Think about direction. Wonder why you haven't. Now stand in the place where you were. Now face no. Think about the place where you live. Wonder why you haven't before. Stand in the place where you are. Stand in the place where you are. Your feet are going to be on the ground. Your head in the place where you are. Around, so stand.
Okay, everybody. We're having a music discussion in the chat box as well. And Nikki's pointing out that there were key changes. This was when REM started to get a little more advanced than their college radio days. That's from a 1989 album called Green. And that was a really big hit, Stand. I can remember going to dances in high school and listening. Oh, I'm a music teacher. Well, I'm a drummer, so I don't understand key changes. I'm not a percussionist, but I appreciate what you do, and some of my best friends are music people. Okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to share those words, sentences, or words, phrases, and sentences using Padlet, and I'm sure a lot of you have used Padlet before. If Nearpod is working correctly, I believe that Padlet should have just opened on your screen. It should be embedded there, and you should be able to add your word, phrase, sentence. So there's a plus sign under each of those columns. Just click in the respective column and add your word, phrase, or sentence. We'll do this without music. This shouldn't take too long. Look at these answers coming in. So if we start to preview some of these, and I know some of you are adding your sentences right now, and they take a little bit longer to add, of course. So I'll start with the word column, but we do see some commonalities there. Some just went with mindset, which makes sense. You know, that if you were going to summarize this, it's defining mindset. So I love to see growth and resilience there. Resilience is something we certainly need right now, right? So we want to foster that idea of resilience, and growth mindset is all about resilience. In the phrases, some interesting things here. The abilities can be developed, and I think, and I see something else there. Let's see where we have the love of learning and resilience. Oh, there it is. Talent alone, I just think it's a typo there. Talent alone creates success. They're wrong. But there are quite a few students that have that idea that the talent that they have, the abilities they have, it's set, and they can't do anything to improve that. And interestingly enough, the research that Dweck did showed that what you tell me, what type of student you think was most likely to have a fixed mindset that believed there wasn't anything else they could do to get any better? Anyone want to take a shot? I'm sure Diane knows, so she can chime in. We'll do some wait time here. What do you think? What type of student, if you're going to classify a student, would be more fixed? So Joe Ellen's saying...
Absolutely, our higher end kids, believe it or not, the gifted children.
It is, surprisingly. And Joe Ellen said lower performing, and that would probably be an instinct, but it's the higher level students are the ones that like to say, just tell me what you need me to know. You know, my son, and I don't like to talk a lot about my kids and bring them into everything I do, but I will in this occasion. He's actually on the autism spectrum, but he's very intelligent. But he has such a fixed mindset that he doesn't think that things like he's a really good musician, but he'll get frustrated if things don't go his way, and he tends to shut down a bit. And he's gotten much, much better at it. He's definitely learned to be a little more resilient and flexible. But a lot of his friends showed the same characteristics, that group he ran in, that they were very fixed and felt, I don't need to practice. I'm a natural. And they probably don't realize how good they could be if they practiced even more. And Nikki, as a music teacher, if you work with instrumentalists too, you see those ones that have the natural talent, and you think, boy, if they just put in a little bit more work, they would just be phenomenal. And eventually, hopefully, that it hits them that, oh yes, I can actually develop this skill. Let's take a look at the sentences before moving on. Teaching growth mindset can create motivation and productivity. There, I see that one a couple times. There it is again, 3, 4, 5. So if we foster that growth mindset, could it help with motivation and productivity? If we start to look at the process of learning and not so much the product, will that help the students to become more flexible and more resilient? So let's dive a little bit deeper into some activities that we can use to look into that. So I'm going to switch back, stay on Nearpod. Okay, so if you can switch to Zoom by all means to look at my slides, but we will be popping back into Nearpod momentarily. In fact, just in a second here. So there's a really handy graphic that gives you an idea of the difference between what the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, the way they would approach things like challenges and obstacles, effort and criticism. That's another big one that my son has a tendency to really struggle with, how he reacts when he's criticized. And then also how they view the success of others. So I'm going to advance the Nearpod slide now so you get a better look at this graphic. It's a little fuzzy on the screen. So let me give you a better quality copy of that. So you should now have on your screen a nice PDF version of that graphic. I'll give you about 30 seconds to take a look. If you can't see it, let me know in the chat or chime in. So in a moment, I'm going to ask a few of you to share kind of what stands out as you look at this graphic, something that surprises you. So you've been warned. Joe Ellen is mentioning in the chat that some of these skills are something they cover in their skills for success, which is a soft skills development. Very important to develop soft skills. Liz, if it's hard to see, you should be able to zoom in. If you're on a computer, you can use like your control and plus key should zoom you in a little bit. If you're using a touch device, you can usually use that pinch to zoom kind of thing, but you may be able to see a little better if you zoom in. Okay, I'm going to call on somebody here just randomly to share what you think. Oh, Liz, sorry if it's blurry when you do that. So it may just be the quality of the original may not be super high. Okay. Did anybody else have trouble reading it? Because I certainly don't want to put you on the spot if you had trouble. If you could, let me take a volunteer who was able to read then to tell me something that stands out, because I don't want to. If you couldn't read it, that's terrible. Anybody want to tell me what stood out? Something that shocked you, surprised you? So I'm going to call on, oh, here we go. What surprised you?
I was surprised that the growth learned from criticism. That kind of surprised me.
So the response to criticism for that person with the growth mindset is that they take that and then they learn from it and they adjust and adapt. Whereas a fixed mindset, when they're criticized, will tend to shut down. Okay. How about one other? Anybody have something different and would like to volunteer? I'm not shy. I'll call. Oh, okay. Rebecca.
It's Becky. Yeah, I like how growth mindset says, see effort as the path to mastery.
I had a college professor that used to say, and I think I paraphrased him earlier, it's the process, not the product. You know, it's the process of doing it is where we learn. So I couldn't agree more. From the chat, you know, people persisting in the face of setbacks and embracing challenge. Right? It sounds a lot like the growth mindset and resiliency, which we saw that word quite a bit in our Padlet, are closely intertwined. Awesome. Okay. So here's what's interesting. I can't emphasize this enough. Normally when I do this workshop, I would use Dr. Dweck's website, which is no longer exists, but she had a quiz that would identify what mindset you were, either fixed or growth. And it tended to really, every time I used it, it kind of bothered the group because I think when they saw fixed, they thought that meant, oh, you know, I'm terrible or I have no chance, I'll never succeed. But Dweck flat out states that no one is completely set in either of those mindsets. So there are some things that those who are maybe when they take the quiz would score somewhat with a growth mindset. We may find that in certain aspects they are fixed. So if you ask them a very specific question or it relates to a certain thing that they're doing or something they maybe feel uncomfortable doing, that they may show that they're more of a fixed mindset. So the good news is that this is not an absolute. So if you find that the quiz exists on other websites, but unfortunately it's one of those things where you give them your email address and they email you and they'll probably just spam you all the time. But the good news is if you were to take this and it says you're fixed, it just means that the questions they ask you resulted in a fixed mindset response. It does not mean that you're fixed for everything you do. Okay? So I cannot stress that enough. And when we get to the pitfalls, you'll see why that's so important. So here is a quote from Dr. Dweck, right from the book. And I guarantee that all of you, especially that last part, you're fascinated with the process of learning. That's why you're attending these sessions. You want to learn more about how we can reach these students in this difficult time. Okay. So the great teachers believe that the students can grow their intellect and their talent. And we're fascinated with the process of learning. Can you give me a yes or a no? Do you believe in this statement? I figured. Oh, I see a thumbs up from Brandy. By the way, that's something new in Zoom. If you haven't noticed it yet, in the main toolbar at the bottom of your screen, there is a reactions button now, and you can give applause and thumbs up, and they show up in the video window. So that's another new nonverbal feedback for those of you using Zoom to do direct instruction with students. Oh, I saw another one from Liz, a thumbs up. So that's another quick way, in addition to yes or no, you can say, give me a thumbs up or some applause, and they can do that. Okay, so before we return to an interactive activity here, what do we need as teachers? So think about our tools. So the first thing we need is to embrace the idea of modeling what that growth mindset looks like. So we would need to do our best to show the students what the growth mindset looks like. So instead of giving up, we persist when that challenge arises. Okay? And this is the classic preaching to the choir. You know this already. We do have to have some space for new ideas. And by space, not the physical space, but we have to have the room in what we're doing, the room in our instruction to try out some of the things that would foster that growth mindset. So it can't be, I take space for new ideas as meaning it can't be business as usual. Many of us probably learned, I'm in my late 40s, if you're even a little bit younger, we grew up learning in that lecture model. And, many college professors, and it's starting to change a little bit, but are also in that lecture model. So that's what we saw, and we're very comfortable with that. I find especially secondary teachers, because they're very specialized in what they teach, really like that lecture model. So you have to develop it. Part of the growth mindset is having space to try those new ideas. And reflection is so important. And I was fortunate to be an instructional coach, and Diane was actually my mentor for probably about the first 6 to 8 years, I think, before she moved on to another place. And now she recruited me back for some reason. So I guess it was a good 6 to 8 years. But reflection is so important. You have to take time. And I tend to try to do it every day, either at the end of the day or in the morning, to think about what went well, what didn't go well, and how I can fix it. And you have to have that part of it. The growth mindset part was, I can change what I did to make it better. Okay. Excuse my sniffles here. And then, another thing from that coaching world that was so stressed was that formative assessment. We want to give constant feedback to our students. If we expect them to grow, it can't be at the end of that 2-week unit, here's your grade. They had no idea going through how they were doing. Okay? They can't grow if it's just an absolute at the end. So we want to use a frequent formative assessment, providing them with feedback. Okay. And this is from an article, and I don't remember if I linked it or not, but this presentation is available, so you'll be able to take a look at it. But the author is Keith Heggert, and the article was called Developing a Growth Mindset in Teachers and Staff. So if you want to take a look at that full article, that's where you'll find it. Are we good? Any questions or anything before I move on? Okay. All right. So this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to use Nearpod for this. And I gave you a drawing module, which means there are tools there that you can use, pencils and markers, and even a text tool if you like to type. But this graphic organizer will show up in a moment once I give it to you. And I want you to practice. This is something I might do with my students. So think of something that you think you can't do. Something you think, I would never be able to do that. And I don't care. It could be professional. It could be part of something you want to do with your job. Or it can be something personal, like, I never could go skydiving. And then work your way through. Why do you think that? What scares you? Why you should try? And then how you would tackle those challenges so they don't stand in your way. So this is a great idea, to think of something that you think you can't do, and then work through the reasoning and figure out, maybe there is a way that I can do that. So we're going to try this. So now on your screen, you should have this graphic organizer. And I'm going to play a little bit of music again while you work, and I'll give you probably just about 5 minutes to jot some notes on this. If you don't get done, that's fine. Okay, are we good? Do we understand? The directions are also in Nearpod. All right, here we go. Chime in if you have a question.
Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when we live in our dream. Everything is better when we stick together. Side by side, you and I gonna win forever. Let's party forever. We're the same, I'm like you, you're like me. We're all working in harmony. Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when we live in our dream. 3, 2, 1, go.
Have you heard the news? Everyone's talking. Life is good cause everything's awesome. Lost my job, that's a new opportunity. More free time for my awesome community. I feel more awesome than an awesome possum. Dip my body in chocolate frosting. 3 years later I shot the frosting. Smelling like a blossom. Everything is awesome. Stepped in mud, got new brown shoes. It's awesome to win and it's awesome to lose. Awesome to lose. Awesome to lose. Awesome to lose.
Everything is better when we stick together.
So I received a question in a private message, but I'll answer it for everyone just in case you can't figure it out. If you're using that text tool to type, you just have to kind of click off of that area and then go back to the text tool and click in the next spot. That's how you reactivate the text tool to make a new box.
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when we live our dream.
About 2 more minutes.
Friday night and the lights are low. Looking out for a place to go. Where they play the right music. Getting in the swing. You come to look for a king. Anybody could be that guy. Night is young and the music's high. With a bit of rock music, everything's fine. You're in the mood for a dance.
Just 1 minute. Oh, I see someone's added a picture.
You are the dancing queen, young and sweet, only 17. Dancing queen, feel the beat from the tambourine. You can dance, you can jive, having the time of your life. See that girl, watch that scene, digging the dancing queen. You're a teaser, you turn him on. Leave him burning and then you're gone. Looking out for another.
Okay, everyone. Do me a big favor. I know some of you haven't finished, and that's fine. A lot of them are real close to being finished. Would you please kindly hit that submit button at the bottom of your screen? I think it says submit. And that will kind of lock it in so I can show people. So you can see my screen. This is the teacher view, and I know some of you were in my Nearpod session that I did last week. But this is really cool because I can actually watch you live as you're working on this assignment. So let's take a look at a couple of these. What I really like about this is I can now present this to the entire class. So when I hit share, you should all now be able to see Sean's graphic organizer. So doesn't think he can play guitar, never learned to play an instrument. Yeah, the fear is, of course, not doing very well or sounding bad. Oh, and wow, now see, I like that. Why I should try. A lot more free time right now, right? So this is a great time to kind of pick up that kind of a new hobby or a new skill. And I'll look at that. Be kind to myself and plan the time. Yeah, we have to make plans to be successful. It just doesn't happen. So we'll plan. Let's take a look at a couple more. Here's Nikki's. Oh, Diane will like this one. Cutting down on clutter. That's one of her favorite things to do, is get rid of stuff. Yep. And it's hard to get motivated, of course.
If it doesn't spark joy, get rid of it.
There you go. There's a pro tip. What are you afraid of? I'll end up shoving boxes I refuse to go through a closet and never go through them again. Yeah, and why? Because you'd like to have a cleaner house. And there we go. How can you get past this? So I can research those methods. Reach out to family and friends for support. And Diane just gave you a tip right there. If it doesn't, if you don't have a passion about it, pitch it. Let's take one more. Let's see here. Well, here's a skydiving one. Skydiving, we tend to get that. No, I can't share it because it's not. Let's use this one. So as a teacher, you can only share ones that have been submitted. So if they're still working, you can't share it with the class. But here's skydive. Yeah, why would you jump out of a perfectly good airplane? Yeah, that's for sure. Why you should try is expanding this. You're sure, Liz? You're sure it's going to happen? So is this something that you've thought of before, or are you just using this as an example, Liz?
I meant to write, I'm not sure. This is something.
Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, go ahead.
Flip, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Every time I've used this graphic organizer, which I really, really like, and I think students would really like it too, because it's really approachable. But the two biggest things that I get, even if I don't mention them, playing the guitar and skydiving, those are always the two. It seems like everybody wants to play the guitar, and everybody sees skydiving as that, the thing that we most fear is jumping out of that airplane, which I would agree with that. Okay. So before we get to our next activity, if you want to complete your drawing, I left that on there, but I brought my slides back up now. So that activity, again, is something you can do with the students. But I really like this idea of rewriting some things that we may say to the students, but we want to, instead of praising the person and just how smart they are, and that to foster a growth mindset, what we need to do, and this is really, really tough, you have to make a conscious effort to do this, is to praise the process instead. So look at these statements. Great job, you must be smart at this. Well, that's not going to foster a growth mindset. But something like, great job, that's okay. You must have worked really hard. So we're praising the effort that they did. Oh, see, you're good at English. You got an A on your last test. You really studied your English test for your English test, and your improvement shows it. So the idea here is that if we praise the process, they're going to focus more on the process of learning instead of on that result. Okay? The learning will then just come naturally. Right? Because if we get them thinking about the process, and that's where they do the heavy lifting, that the achievement just seems to come naturally. So think about when you're providing feedback that we're praising the work. This is really important right now because some of us aren't even allowed to grade, or we've moved to a pass-fail model. So one of the things that we can do to help keep those students motivated is to focus more on the process and not so much on the grade, which maybe doesn't even exist. So let's flip this around and think about students. Can we encourage our students to use these growth statements? So you hear this all the time, I bet, right? I can't do this. I can't do this. Get them to say, I need help understanding this. But there is hope. This is too hard. It will take me some time to get this. If we can get them in that mindset where they realize that it's not an absolute, it's not done. They have a chance. They just need to say, I need some help. I need to make a little more effort. Okay, so let's practice this. So we're going to use Nearpod again. We already showed the first two examples here. I can't do this and this is too hard. Here's some other things that students might say. Again, this is an awesome student activity. I'm going to ask you, and I'm only going to give you 2 minutes to do this, so you can pick a few. Try to get 2 or 3. Rewrite the statement on the left into a statement that would foster a growth mindset. Does everyone understand the directions? I see some yes. You can also remember to use that reaction thumbs up. Excellent. Here we go. All right, I see. This is again a drawing. You can use the text tool, or you can, if you have a touch device, the pen is easy to use as well. How about I'll play one short song while we do this. That should help us time this out.
The mama pajama rolled out of bed and she ran to the police station. When the papa found out, he began to shout and he started the investigation. It's against the law. It was against the law. Or what the mama saw. It was against the law. The mama looked down and spit on the ground every time her name gets mentioned. The papa said, oh, if I get that boy, I'm gonna stick him in the house of detention. Well, I'm on my way. I don't know where I'm going. I'm on my way. I'm taking my time, but I don't know where. Goodbye to Rosie, the queen of Corona. See me and Julio down by the schoolyard. See me and Julio down by the schoolyard. They're gonna take me away, but the press let the story leak.
1 minute.
Now when the radical priests come to get me released, we's all on the coroner's week, and I'm on my way. I don't know where I'm going. I'm on my way. I'm taking my time, but I don't know where. Goodbye to Rosie, the queen of Corona. See me and Julio down by the schoolyard.
Don't forget to hit
See me
submit.
and Julio down
do
by
2
the
or 3.
schoolyard. See me and Julio down by the schoolyard.
Okay, so let's see what we came up with. If you haven't done it yet, hit submit. I see them coming in. Terrific. Let's take a look at Renee's. Oh yeah, so instead of I give up, I'm not there yet. Yeah, that's a great growth mindset statement. Absolutely. Diane picked, I tried and it didn't work. That's something that we hear quite a bit too. I need to try again. Yeah. I mean, trial and error, right? That's why we have that phrase of trial and error. You're going to make mistakes and it's okay. So let's, oh, look here. Wow, Liz got a lot of this done. It's good enough. Oh, love this. What can I do to make this better? That's awesome. You know, we get past that. Oh, I did it. You know, check it off. But what can I do to make it better? All right? I'm just not going to get this. I will keep trying. Awesome. Let's check out one more. Let's see. I'll never be as smart as my friend. Again, there's that, you know, comparison to others. Oh, look. Oh, I love that. What do they do to make them do well? Yeah, that's a great question, Sean. If we have the environment, if our classroom is set up that encourages them to collaborate with one another, then that student should feel comfortable to go to the one that achieves and said, you know, what, I'm missing something. You know, what is it that you do, or how is it that you are able to grasp this and learn from those students? That's phenomenal. Excellent job, everybody. Okay, we don't have time to look at all of them, but I really kind of like where where you're going with those statements. Okay? Is that activity something that you could take and work with your students? You'd have to introduce the idea of growth mindset, and you might want to do that in a sneaky way. I wouldn't refer to it as growth mindset with the kids. I'll explain why here in a moment. But is that kind of activity in the previous one we did, are those things you think your students would enjoy? And you can do a thumbs up or a yes or no there. Okay. Oh, I see applause. I see some thumbs up and some yeses. Good. So one other thing that I really, really like, and a couple of these are just kind of going to be show and tell here at this point as we near the end of today's session. But I really like this, and I have this in Nearpod for you as well, but we'll start with the slide. These are some questions that we can use as teachers. Again, this is linked in the presentation slides, which I will have available on our page. But these are some growth mindset questions that we can ask as teachers. Just preview some of these. Hopefully you can see them all right, but I'll read a couple of them that I really like. Who can you ask for honest feedback? Love that one. What can you do to manage distractions? How many of our kids get down the rabbit hole, or they can't get started because they don't have the focus? So maybe that's one of the things they work on, is how we eliminate that. What's the next challenge to tackle? Okay, so we always have our eyes on the next thing. So are we using questions like that in our classroom? I bet a lot of you are, but this is a great kind of a graphic organizer, a reminder. So the students may run into problems along the way. They will, let's not say they may, they will run into problems along the way. Here's another neat organizer from Understood, and I've linked to Understood site. They have more than growth mindset materials, by the way, and these are all free. But for the students who are struggling, here's another step-by-step. What happened? What strategy did you use? What were you thinking? So it gets them to reflect, which is one of our key pieces. So this is a great way for students who don't have that natural ability to reflect like we do as educators, that helps them learn that process in 9 steps. Okay. I'm going to actually skip this activity so we stay on time. So there are some pitfalls here, and these are directly from Dr. Dweck's book. She realizes that there are some places where we could mess up as educators, okay? And really, there are just 3 that she identified. One is this idea of simply praising the effort alone. The realization is that we do have to assign grades. They do have to achieve. They have to meet a certain level to advance. They have to get a certain score on an SAT if they want to go to college. So there are all kinds of things that have scores attached to them. So we can't, there's a risk in solely praising just the effort, because ultimately we do want it to lead to results. The idea is that the praising the effort will lead to the results that are desired. Okay? Also, excuse me, the idea of telling students, you can do anything. There are things that I probably can't do that I might love to do. And I think sometimes, especially dealing with parents, the last few years when I was working at a public high school, you hear parents tell their kids, sure, you can do that, and you can do this, and you can do it. There has to be a foundation in realism. For example, I'm going to be 48 years old in July. I love space. I love space travel. I can't be an astronaut. Okay? I'm too old. I'm too fat. Okay, they'd have to call Omar the tent maker to make my spacesuit. So none of that is going to happen. So we can't just say you can do everything. There are some things that they aren't going to be able to do. And we don't want to lose our foundation in reality. And number 3 is probably the most important thing. And this is why I said I would not overtly use growth mindset and labeling people. And you can't say It's because you have a fixed mindset, Johnny. That's why you're not achieving. That is the danger. Okay? That's the biggest thing, because what would happen if I blame the mindset? If I said to a student, oh, it's because you have a fixed mindset, how's that student going to react? I think someone's going to chime in here. Yeah, Sean says in chat, it reinforces the fixed mindset, right? So we may very well know that the student's in a fixed mindset, but if we say, oh, Johnny, it's because you have a fixed mindset, we're just reinforcing that. He'll become even more deeply rooted in that fixed mindset. Yeah, Liz, they will shut down. Absolutely. So that's the big risk. Do these three risks make sense? I think they're really, really clear. Okay. And I do, and Liz mentioned, you can do almost anything. I think that's accurate. Excuse me. But I think there are things that, we don't want to lose sight of reality. So here's your ticket out the door. And we have, about 8 minutes. So this is perfect. We still have time for questions. I'm going to return you to your pod, and I'm going to have you draw something that represents what you learned today. So I'm going to flip through the activities that we skipped for time. So you have a blank slate here. Create a visual representation, a drawing of what you learned about mindset. Yes, you can use words. Notice there is a timer running on this activity. It is timed. So after 4.5 minutes, it will be over. So sketch some notes. Share your learning. What did you learn about mindset during this session? And here comes some music to help you.
There's a girl that's been on my mind all the time. Studio. Oh, now she don't even know my name, but I think she likes me just the same. Studio. Oh. If she called me, I'd be there. I'd come running anywhere. She's all I need, all of my life. I feel so good if I just say the word. Studio. Just say the word. Oh, studio. Now I know that I'm too young. My life has just begun. Studio. Oh, give me a chance, give me a sign. I show her anytime. Studio. Oh. I've got to have her now. Got to get closer, but I don't know how. She makes me nervous, it makes
2
me
minutes to
scared.
finish your masterpiece.
I feel so good if I just say the word. Studio. Just say the word. Studio.
minute left. Don't forget to hit submit when you finish your arch. Seconds. Awesome, everybody. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We have just a couple minutes left. So I'm going to pick two of these. I'll call on those people. If you can unmute yourself, I want you to explain your drawing. And I'm just looking at the thumbnails here. And let's start with Sean. If you could unmute, everybody can see your drawing now and explain what you came up with.
I thought that the kind of dichotomy of the two different mindsets are kind of like traffic light. One kind of is more of a go, one's more of a stop. And growth mindset, this is how I can do it. Fixed mindset, this is how I cannot.
Really nice. And I have to give nice. I have to give you kudos for you have the stop light and go light in the right spot, which a lot of people screw up. Very nice. Let's try Nikki.
Sure, those are GIFs, and one of them you can't see on the left as well is an octopus going along the ocean floor going, nope, 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 and running away from whatever it is. And that would be the fixed mindset of, no, I can't do this, I'm running away from it. Moving towards the GIF of, do you know what that is? Growth, which is at this point pretty self-explanatory.
Awesome. Let me see here. Let me pick one more. And let's see. Oh, a bunch of people went back to in progress, so I can't share them right now. Renee, could you explain yours? Because I think I know where you're going there, but if you could submit it, I can share it then.
I thought I did submit, but anyway, I did the tree. There you go. The tree on the left is the growth mindset, meaning it's growing, it's fostering, it's reaching out. And the tree on the right would be a fixed mindset, more or less just locked into place. So there's no growth there at all.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. I like so instead of the trunk that helps it grow, it's got the lock there.
Yes.
Which prevents it from growing any longer. Really, really love it. Okay. So this brings us pretty much to the end. The slideshow will be found on our page. If you go to that online learning toolkit and look at the calendar, click on today, you'll see the details for today's session, including the links to the presentation. But these are the 3 sites that I use to find a lot of these materials. And again, I use Nearpod to distribute the materials to you, which is a handy tool as well. So we have a minute or so while we're right at 11:30, but any questions? I didn't see any in the chat, but if anybody has any questions, we'll take those now. If not, you are free to boogaloo on out of here. Do we have a good sense of mindset? If you could use the yes or no or the thumbs up, did you learn about mindset today? Boy, I hope so. Oh, good. I'm seeing yeses and thumbs up. Great. Yeah, feel free use this stuff and look at those websites, because there's a lot of free stuff out there. I try to always show free things, because I hate to give you something you have to pay to use somebody's tools. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We always hang around a few minutes till everyone leaves. So if you had a question and you were afraid to ask in front of anybody, you can wait. If not, I'm going to stop the recording now. Have a tremendous day, everyone. Don't forget tomorrow. Diane, maybe you want to plug your session before I stop.
Oh, absolutely. Folks, it's actually very closely akin, or it feeds from the growth mindset, but we're going to talk about, first, you're going to take a resiliency quiz to realize what and to figure out, are you resilient, yes or no, personally? We're going to talk about 3 steps for yourself or for students, and we're going to create a resiliency board, an inspirational board, in our hour tomorrow from 10:30 to 11:30.
We are looking forward to it. Liz, where do you go to get all the materials? So Liz, when you visit our www.ciu10.org website, you'll see a graphic there that has like stacked stones. It's very zen with a nice blue sky. When you click there, go to the free resources, and in the calendar, you'll see today's event. When you click on it, you'll get the details, and there will be a link there that says view the slides. And the links in the slides will take you directly to those websites. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. I'm going to stop recording, but we will hang out here if you have any other questions. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day. Stay safe.